Is that Emily who's still there? Emily's there. And I think she can hear me because she's saying things. Oh, wait, we got another person. Two people. Hello, Emily. Wonderful when it works. Hello from Melbourne. Oh, awesome. That's fabulous. Now we're just waiting. Jill's trying to come in, and although we did a successful test earlier this week, no problem. For some reason, she's unable to come in. So we're waiting till she can pop herself on. And she and I are talking. You can't see, but we're talking by chat window. We're going to get her in here. It's kind of nuts. We've done this before. It worked great. Right now it's being difficult. And of course, the support people are not available. All right, well, that's not good. Let me see what I can do here. Let's try this. Changing the mode. She can see and hear me. Good idea, Emily. Yeah, you should always close out anything else you don't need. That works out much better. Excuse me. I don't know about you guys. I have gotten nonstop emails all day, and I'm wearing my little Pebble watch, which is like a cheap version of the Apple Watch, and it's been buzzing nonstop. Fluvog wants me to buy shoes. It's like, enough already. Okay, so let me see now. What I want to see, and I'm going to choose the window, is who is here. So let's try this one. Okay, good. Now, if I close this, you guys must think I'm nuts, but you know, it's what happens. So there's Jill. Make presenter. Good. Turn voice on. Yes. Jill, I'm turning your voice on. Turning on your video. I feel so powerful. Yes, thank you, Emily. That is awesome. Look, I think I did it. I think yes! Yes! We did it! Muppet flail! You look, see, I'm wearing lipstick. I'm not even wearing lipstick. I just have like random crap leftovers. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Everybody, I'm good. Can you guys hear? Can you hear Jill? I just want to make sure before we start talking. And it is recording, which is important. Okay, good. Oh, thanks, Sue. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to put it back to the window shape that I like because it's easier to see now that I've got my girl here with me. There
now that
she
we're all
is.
on the same web page.
We are. I don't know what was happening, but I'll deal with tech support later. They mostly work. So hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Knitty Chat in my messy office, and you can probably see it because I didn't hide things very well. So how are you doing,
Yeah,
Jill?
I'm good.
What?
I picked a spot in my home sewing studio that is less crazy looking than the rest of it. So you're seeing a very small part of my home studio.
There's like a word for that, right? The Instagram filter that we only show this tiny little bit.
Totally
Like
the
when
clean window.
yeah, when I moved into my first like single girl apartment after being married forever, I had this one perfect little vignette of this hutch that I staged to look just like Martha Stewart land, and it was perfect. And it still looks perfect, except it's got twice as much crap on it, and it's surrounded by normal life. So, you know, people, I don't know, people who can sustain that, I think, are wonderful. I am not one of them.
Nor am I.
So,
um,
you guys, Emily and Sue, we're glad you're here. For the people who are celebrating Turkey Day or just busy because it's a Friday at 5, we will be recording this, and we are recording this. I see it flashing, which is good. And this will be up on the site for people to watch later. So, although it was an intimate chat at the moment, we are sending out vibes to all of you to come join us in the future. So, Jill, you've been a busy
Hi.
girl.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's yarn season, right?
Yeah, absolutely is. So, what I want you to do for the people who don't know you is tell us a little bit about the way you run your business, which is not the same as every indie dyer does. And I find it really fascinating.
Sure. So I hand dye all my yarns in upstate New York, but really the yarn starts on the farm. I source all my wool and all the fiber from local farms mostly. Some are out west. I'm in the east coast of the U.S. For people who don't know, I'm in New York State. I live right across the river from Rhinebeck. So most knitters, even if you aren't familiar with New York State, know Rhinebeck. I'm about 15 minutes away from there. Most of my wool comes from Maine, Massachusetts, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont. We do have some that comes from out west. The flocks tend to be a little bigger out there. Then I design all the yarns. I work with mills to get the twist and the ply that I want, the specific fiber blend that I'm interested in, and then I get it back and hand dye it. So I guess that's what sets it apart is that my yarns really start on the farm with me designing them from the very beginning.
So, I mean, you've been doing this for how long now?
Well, Jill Draper Makes Stuff has been around since 2007. The first couple years, I was dyeing base that I was buying from suppliers and hand spinning. The first yarn that was Jill Draper Makes Stuff yarn was all hand spun. But that got to be not so sustainable.
Yeah.
It was really hard to keep up when you're trying to spin every single yarn for your orders.
Wow.
So as the shop got busier, I moved into dyeing base and then eventually working with mills and having my own yarn sourced.
Cool. So you've been doing this in 2007. When did you start like going out to different farms and finding sheep? What kind of, yeah, tell me about that.
So it probably started in like 2009 or 2010. And, because I was a hand spinner, I was familiar with all these different breeds of wool. And I couldn't quite figure out why the hand spinners all knew about these breeds, but none of the knitters did. And I think that's changed now. I mean, the last 10 years, I think a lot more people have focused on breed specific yarns and knowing a little bit more about the breeds. And, Knitty's Jillian has certainly done a lot with that. Beth Smith, I mean, there are a lot of people sort of sharing their knowledge of fiber. Because I think when I started, you would see merino or you would see wool. And those were the only two classifications, really. And, it's like when you've only ever seen a green apple or a red apple, and then you realize that there are hundreds of varieties that are all good for different things, it opens the world up. Some apples are great for cakes, and some are better for pies, and some are good to eat raw. And I think that wool is the same way. Certain breeds are better for certain applications. One of the yarns I have is a Cheviot wool, and I think Cheviot is something people aren't really familiar with. It's a hardier breed. The cool thing about it is it has a helical crimp. So, most sheep crimp goes just up and down, like if you used a crimping iron on your hair. And
Okay.
Cheviot has a helical crimp, so it's more of a spiral. So it's a
It's
really
like a Rasta
hard
sheep a
wearing
little
yarn.
bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have clean faces and little stick-up ears. They're very cute. You should look them up.
I will.
Um, but I have that yarn spun into sort of a lopey construction. So it's a really light woolen spun. It looks like a single. It's actually two strands that are really lightly twisted together. But if you looked
Huh.
at it, you would think it was a single. And it makes for this really hard wearing, but really light wool, similar to lopey, but a little bit softer because the Cheviot, is a little finer micron count than
Huh.
Icelandic.
So the fact that it already got some twist in it, does it affect how you have to spin it?
A little bit, but what I find is that I use that construction, the sort of faux single, because it already sort of has a body. If you use something like alpaca and put that in a single, the resulting yarn would end up pretty limp.
Right.
Whereas this really has sort of a spring back. The more plies that you give the yarn, the more elasticity it has. It
Right.
also tends to wear better. If you think about the construction of a yarn, if you look at a single ply, all of the fiber is on the outside. So all of that can be abraded. If you look at
Right.
something that's a four ply, only a quarter of each fiber, if you think about
Ooh,
the construction of it, is on the outside, so it resists abrasion more.
that's a
But
very good
because
explanation.
Cheviot's pretty
Yeah.
hardy, and because it has a pretty sturdy crimp, in a single, it's great, and it really, keeps its body. And I love it for like mittens and barn sweaters. It's an outdoor fabric, I would say.
Cool. So that's one of your favorites. Is that in every year's line, or have you brought that in recently?
No, we're probably on like the fifth year. It's wool I buy from Dutchess County. The farmer that raises it is someone that I really enjoy. You know, we make a fairly small run of it comparatively, but I'm always gonna have it because I love it.
And which yarn? What do you call the yarn that's in?
It's called Valkill, which
Cool.
is the name of Eleanor Roosevelt's house here in the Hudson Valley.
Awesome. Yeah, and for those who don't know, Dutchess County is where Rhinebeck is, which is where you are, which is the whole thing, right?
Yes.
We all know that because
Technically,
it's the
I'm in
Dutchess
Ulster
County
County
Fair.
because there's a river
Ah,
across,
that is
between
true.
us, but
Yeah,
but
it's a heck of
yes.
a river. Yeah, cool. Very cool. Okay, so you like Chevia. What else do you like?
Oh my gosh, it's like asking a parent what their favorite child is.
Yeah,
Each
well, I'm
one
asking
sort
you.
of I don't know, each one has something special about it um for what it is. It sort of depends on what I'm doing. The newest yarn that we released is Beacon. And I love that because it uses alpaca from Western Mass, Cormo from upstate New York, and then Angora that is actually from the bunnies that my mom raises.
That is
So
so cool.
it's definitely the closest to home,
Yeah.
which makes there's something really special about that to me.
I just love that this is sort of like baking, like you were picking a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you're making like the most unique, wonderful thing. And everything you do is pretty small runs. I mean, is there anything you do that you would consider wide range? Because I think I see them when you release them, you say, I've got another batch of Riften or another batch of whichever. And that's it. When it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, so there are three yarns that I buy the wool from commercial wool brokers, which means that I can buy a large amount compared to, when I'm working with specific flocks, you're limited by how many head they have.
Right.
So Wyndham is my non-superwash merino yarn. Hudson is the superwashed merino yarn, and those are both worsted weight. And Esopus is the superwash fingering. So all three of those come from a wool broker. I mean, I still have designed the twist and the ply, but those I buy in a way bigger quantity. Um, because what a wool broker is, and I guess maybe people aren't familiar with this, is basically they're buying wool from all farms, all across the country, and they separate it by micron count and staple length, and then that's how you buy it. So you can
Huh.
pretty much from a wool broker buy as much as you would want.
And you
At
don't really
least for me,
necessarily know. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, at least for me, I've never needed more than they've been able to supply.
Okay. But you don't necessarily know, is it sort of like blending the best of, so you're not exactly sure which sheep are coming, but they all have a similar texture of fleece?
That's exactly what it is. Yep. So they
Right.
class it, and they class it by the micron count and the staple length.
Cool.
So the merino, you would be hard pressed to find other sheep that you're getting, a 21 micron count and, a 4-inch staple length. So we don't DNA test it. The
Right.
assumption is it's merino
Gotcha.
because there's just not a lot of other breeds that will give you such a fine wool.
Got it. So talk to me a bit about your process in terms of color. I mean, how you choose the colors that go with each line, when you change
Well,
stuff up.
well, I guess that's the beauty of being the boss is I can kind of change it on a whim. I mean, I don't really have standards. There are some colors that reappear with frequency, mostly because it's stuff I like. It's sort of the basics. But the multicolors never get repeated. For me, they're like paintings. And once I've
Mm,
done it and like it's out
yeah,
of my system, I I couldn't recreate it again. Like it's done, if that makes sense.
I love
So
that. I think
that's
that's a
sort
great
of
idea.
one of the fun things for me is I get to keep changing it up and I don't have to like dread making one more batch of X color because,
Right.
you know, I wanted to have a business where I could make all the rules, whatever those rules were.
And your people clearly, your customers love that because I love watching. I mean, let's go back a little bit. The first time I ever
Yeah.
saw you before we became friends, we've been friends for a while now, which is awesome. But before that, I saw your hands and big ass balls of wool. and just beautiful skeins. And they're so tempting. And I think it was in context or in conjunction with the Martha Stewart contest. That's where
It
I saw you
probably
first.
was, yeah.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was Martha Stewart. I think it was her first or maybe second year of her American Made contest. The Empires, so it's an entire sweater's worth of yarn in a single skein. It's 1,280 yards of Aran weight. So a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, well, it's not a
Right.
sweater for me. And I'm like, well, 1,280 yards of Aran weight, we get, I've seen people make up to like a 44 bust, a 46 bust, sweater out of it. So there are quite a lot of sweaters you can get out of it. I've also made baby blankets with it.
Right.
Because what's better than a big squishy baby blanket?
Exactly.
The reason I made them was I had never seen an entire sweater in a skein of yarn,
Yeah.
and I wanted to. That's sort of the beauty of being able to work with mills is any crazy dream that I have, I can bring to them. And after all these years of doing it, I have some really good partners in this, and I can suggest all sorts of crazy stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But Empire's made with Green Mountain Spinnery in Vermont, and they're great to me. We have a great relationship. They're a co-op, so everyone who works there has a lot of input into what goes in to their yarn. So it felt like a really good fit. And when I told them the idea of having a whole sweater and a skein, they were really excited about it. And they were like, I don't know if it's going to work, but let's try it.
That's so cool.
um,
Okay, so Emily's asking about what if you had demand for people who have a bigger than a 46-inch bust. That would be also me. Not that I can wear
yes.
wool, but it's an interesting concept. So what do you suggest to your clients? What do you do?
So we also put it up in 4-ounce skeins, and the 4-ounce skeins I dye in sets of 10. So that's 2,130 yards.
We
So
should get
2,130 yards of Aran weight. I think you'd get many sizes of sweater out of that.
yeah, you get
So
at
most people
least
who need
52 if
more
not
than
more.
yeah
Yeah,
1,280 yards, that's what they do is they buy the
they buy
mini
the smaller
skein,
skeins. Cool.
or you can buy a large skein, and put some contrast in it.
I love
I
that idea.
rarely knit things in one color, and part of it
I
is
know. Look what you're
when I
wearing. It's perfect.
I know my mom actually made this for me.
Hey, mom.
But yeah, it's, for me the fun is mixing. So there are options. You're not set. You can't you can buy it in more than 1,280 yards.
Cool. Yeah, and Sue's saying that's something that she would be into. I think a lot of people are, and sometimes it's just a matter of thinking outside the box a little bit. But it's good to know there's choices either way because those huge skeins are just so appealing.
Yeah, I have a Ravelry group, and it's really fun to see what people make. I think probably the finished objects thread is by far my favorite because people come up with patterns that I've never seen. They make projects I would have never thought of. They
Yeah,
change yarns. So it's a really good place to look for inspiration. And, people of all sizes and shapes have made lots of sweaters. And it's fun to see. And that's one of
yeah,
the beautiful things, I think, is to get to see all these people. And like someone will look like you, someone's
yeah,
shape. Like someone's tall and skinny and has really long arms, and like they describe how they've
yeah.
altered a sweater to fit, their extra long arms. Or somebody else needs to do a bust start because the difference between their bust and their waist is so significant that
Right.
they've adjusted it in a way to make it flattering. And that's really cool. I mean, I was a total Luddite coming to the internet. So it's really been fun to get to see all the people interacting.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my favorite things as a knitter who's not tiny to go and look at what people have done either with the yarn I have or with the sweater I want to knit. Like, will it suit my body or will it work in that yarn? And there's one I'm working on right now that's a Heidi Kiermaier pattern. Someone's already knitted in exactly the yarn I'm doing it in, and it looks great. And the fact is that it's a sweatshirt. So I know a sweatshirt may not be the most flattering shape on my body type, and I've decided I don't care. But at least I had the option to look. Although one thing I would encourage everyone to do, especially if you're bigger, is to take a picture and show what it looks like on you, because although it's nice to put it on the bed or on a mannequin, you're really helping a lot of people when you put it on yourself and show us what it looks like. It's so useful. That's one of my favorite things
Yeah,
about Ravelry.
mine
So
too.
what are you
And I
doing
think
right
it's
now?
hard,
Yes,
people are
good.
shy.
Well, people are, and then people cut their heads off, and then that, it's funny that translates to Knitty. Everyone's so used to the Ravelry, finished object shot, which does not include a head, because getting the
Right.
head as well, like your face and the body looking good, it makes the picture 40 times harder to take, right? By
Right.
the way, the secret for people who don't know this: take lots and lots of shots, and one of them will be good. And if even if it's your spouse who doesn't like taking pictures of you, just have the spouse hold the button down and shoot, 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 and one of them will be good. We know that's how it works. That's what Emily says. 100 photos you take, one of them will get on the internet. And honestly, that's how professional photographers
I,
work. You guys
I
know
was gonna
that.
say, we just
Yeah,
did our first collection with Gail Zucker, who's an amazing photographer, amazing to work with. Our model was beautiful. She's just a friend of mine who's an artist, so she wasn't a
right.
professional. Um, but trust me, when I went through the photos to edit, um, there were pages and pages and pages and pages of options. And
Yep,
it's a variety of things. Like sometimes like the collar of the sweater's flipped funny, and
yep,
sometimes you catch someone mid sneeze, or everything's perfect, and then there's like a weird piece of lawn furniture in the background that you
yep,
didn't realize when you were shooting it. So I definitely agree. We shoot a
yeah.
lot more than you ever see. And there
Very
are a
true.
lot of them that I would not want out in the world.
Well, it's funny you should mention that new book of yours. I think you should talk about it. Although I will tell you, and I guess I don't know if this is a conflict of interest. Okay, well, that was distracting. Emily says her classic nipple showing through, everything else perfect. That's always nice. That's what Photoshop is for. Can I just
I was
say?
going to say, Emily,
Um,
I have done a photo shoot with a friend who was modeling holding my empires. And like, we're kind of crunchy girls up here in the Hudson Valley. And I spent an entire day photoshopping my friend's nipples off. So
I
it happens.
don't think I've actually ever done that. I have not photoshopped out nipples. I've photoshopped out snot from babies' noses. I've fixed dirty fingernails, but I have never. No, I've never done nipples. Well, it's okay.
You know,
We're only
thank you,
15
art
minutes.
school.
You guys are funny. Okay, so but talk about this book, Jill, because I'm going to be reviewing it, but I want you to tell everybody here a little bit about it, and then they can read more about it in our winter issue.
Sure, great. I'd love to hear that. So Rural Renewal is our first collection. We worked with 8 designers, and I've designed a couple pieces. It's sort of the theme. I think you get it from looking at it, is sort of my take on the Hudson Valley. So it's homey and cozy, but I would say with the eye of a city. There's something sort of modern about it. I don't think that my style is really folky, but it's definitely influenced by being in the country, if that makes sense.
It does. You should tell
We use
people
a
a
lot
little
of
bit about.
color.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no. I finish your spiel, then I want to talk a little bit about your New York history that colors your work, which I think is fascinating. But okay, go ahead. You use a lot of color.
Sure. Yeah, so we use a lot of color there. I don't think that we have any single color projects. That goes back to my taste for things that are a little more eclectic. I worked with Gail Zucker, as I said. We shot at Locust Lawn, which is a historic site here in the Hudson Valley. I'm lucky to have a friend that's a caretaker there. So we had full access to this really beautiful historic house, and her dove. If you've seen the pictures of Thea Coleman's hat is called Wallkill River, and the model has a dove sitting on top of her head. Many people have
As you
asked
do.
if it's a real dove, and it is. My friend Dawn, who's the caretaker at Locust Lawn, has a dove that joined in our photo shoot.
Awesome. That beats a bunny any day.
A little more rare, I guess, than a bunny, and Snowy was very
Oh,
happy to join in.
that's so cool. Pet dove. I didn't know there was such a thing. Okay, good. And did you design all of it yourself? Did you work with designers?
So we have about 8 designers. I worked with all of them. I sent them a mood board. We reworked some things, so it worked cohesively as a collection. I think, Amy, what you're going to ask about is my time in New York. I
Yeah.
worked in the commercial fashion industry, so that
There
was
you go.
my background. That's when I got out of school. I studied fashion at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn.
Cool.
Worked in the commercial industry for a while. And while there were a lot of things I loved about it, I love textiles, I love clothing, I love fashion. There's a lot of sort of sneering, I think, in the knitting world at the fashion industry. And I think that a lot of it is misconception. Um, Most people who work in fashion aren't snobs, are true textile lovers. They're us, right? I mean, it's people who love to make things with their hands and love textiles and love fabrics and love color. Um, so I loved that part of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the commercial fashion industry, the higher up you move, the farther you get from production.
Right.
Um, and most stuff, especially the jobs that paid well, were working for big companies where I'd sketch stuff and we'd send it overseas for production.
Mm.
And that's just the way it is. I mean,
Yeah.
sadly, that is the way, manufacturing works now. And it wasn't fulfilling.
Mm.
Sketching wasn't hitting that spot for me that
Right.
making stuff did.
Yeah.
So I worked in yarn stores while I was freelancing and sort of trying to figure out what my next step would be. Um, and I moved upstate when Margaret from Morehouse Merino. I don't know if everyone's familiar with Morehouse Merino. Margaret passed away this year, sadly.
Oh
Um,
dear, I didn't know.
yeah, but I read about her in Knitting in America, the beautiful Melanie Fallick book, which
Yep,
anyone who's seeing this, if you've not seen Knitting in America, you need it on your bookshelf. It
it's
is
true.
just a beautiful, beautiful knitting book.
And
And I was
also,
so moved.
go ahead,
I'm
you
sorry.
finish. Oh, I was
Oh,
going to say,
well,
and
I was just
also just, yeah, go.
it was just showing a different side of the knitting world that I didn't really know existed.
Yeah.
I knit when I was a kid. I lived in New York City. I didn't have such a connection to the farms and the people producing. And I was really inspired by the book, and I wanted to change. So I wrote to Margaret and said, "Can I move upstate and work for you? I'll do anything. I'll shovel sheep stalls."
Wow.
And she wrote me back, and after a few interviews, I moved up to the farm.
Wow.
She never made me shovel sheep stalls, though. I feel like I should say
That's pretty
that.
awesome. The thing I was going to mention about that book is for any of us who've come along in this century, which sounds ridiculous, but it's this century, um, a lot of us may not know sort of what happened in the 80s and 90s to bring knitting from what it was to what it is now. And I think that book bridges that time period really nicely and helps us understand some of the key players that brought us here. It's also a beautiful book, but it's so interesting if you don't know what came before. And it's sort of post Elizabeth Zimmerman and pre-internet, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I think that was a time that there was a real dearth in the knitting industry. Like there wasn't a lot.
No.
You know, I was working in New York at yarn stores in the late 90s and early 2000s, and there was a lot of novelty yarn. And
There was.
listen, to me, everything has its place.
Yep.
There is definitely a place for novelty yarn, and I don't think there's any shame in using it. I know that there's like sort of this yarn snobbery that goes around. But you know, it was having a real moment. And it was there wasn't a lot of wool yarn. It just wasn't popular. You
No,
know,
no, not at all. There had been
it
wool,
wasn't
and
what
wool.
people were wanting.
Yeah, I mean, we had all of the skinny wools that were popular in the 50s and 60s, and then the synthetics came in and went crazy. And then in the 80s, it was all weird cottons and other strange colors. And then it was something that wasn't what we knew yarn to be. And I think in that way, it brought a lot of people in who wouldn't normally knit. So I don't know about you, but I'm still seeing scarves made out of just skeins of novelty yarn that are sort of knotted together every so often by people who don't
Yep.
knit. That in itself is different enough to make people interested in knitting, or at least in fiber. So if you came in through fuzzy yarn, which honestly a lot of us did, I played with it in the early 2000s. Nothing wrong with that. And the vegan fox, which I just retweeted on Twitter today, someone just knit it, which is it's from like our first issue practically. It's basically a fox stole made out of like polyester fuzz. But
Hmm.
that kind of thing made people go, oh, knitting can be something interesting beyond a sweater. And then we went through that period where all we wanted were sweaters again. And then we started getting to heritage bridge and all breeds and all of this other stuff. But the novelty yarn was the bridge from the old to the new, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I knit when I was small. My grandmom taught me, but when I went to fashion school, and I'm in a textile program, so in theory, everyone's interested in textiles. I was the only person in my class who knit.
Really?
And Pratt is as the fashion department's relatively small.
Yeah.
But no one knit. We didn't have any knitting classes. We didn't have knitting machines. I think FIT
Really?
probably had more. Yep.
I wonder if that's
Um,
changed
I,
since then.
it has. I know that they have a
Yeah.
hand knitting professor now.
Good. Good.
Um, but when I was there, I would ask professors, "How do you write a knitting pattern?" Because I had never followed a pattern. Everything I had knit, my grandmom would sort of get me started on and give me the basic directions because she didn't knit from patterns. She was
Right.
like, "Well, you just cast on enough to be as wide as your body, then knit up to the armholes, then decrease a little bit." Like,
Yeah.
she cooks that way too.
Yeah. My grandma was the same, actually. She was pretty casual when the food came. Here, throw this in. A few of these.
Yeah.
And the blue rubber bands for a little bit of color and flavor to hold all the vegetables together. Gotta have the blue ones.
But I feel like when I found Elizabeth Zimmerman,
Yeah.
it made so much sense to me because I think that that's the way that people used to just have this sort of innate knowledge, and they didn't need the pithy directions. You could sort of
Except
give someone the broad strokes.
I was never a broad strokes girl, and I think that is kind of fascinating, and perhaps that separates the designer brain from the sheep brain. I'm more of a sheep brain. Although I do design, I was the person who wanted the 9-stitch scarf written out for me by the shop
Right.
owner until, fine, I started a magazine, I started to open up my mind a little bit, but I really wanted to know that my effort would result in a product, as opposed to Jillian, who is a process knitter and doesn't really care if she ever finishes anything. But I wanted
Right.
to actually get my scarf. And I finally realized that I didn't need to be so uptight and rigid. I could actually just go with it. But I was not one of those people who could think outside of any kind of pattern. I had books and I followed them slavishly. So there's all kinds.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
it does take all of us. And you know what I've noticed? Do you have any kind of mathematical background?
No, except that I love it. I mean, I find math fascinating.
As opposed to me, where it's this big wall that I cannot get through. That's the other thing I find in designers. They tend to usually either have a math background or have no fear of it. So you're clearly the latter anyway, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people, school kind of ruined me. Like I thought I didn't like math, because I think I didn't like my math teachers.
Yeah, I didn't
And then when
either.
I got older, I realized that I really like math actually. There's
Really?
this fascinating book called Gödel, Escher, Bach
Yeah.
that if you Douglas Hofstadter, if you're a math nerd, if anyone's listening, you
Yes.
probably have already read it. But it is a fascinating book about the philosophy of math.
Cool.
It's dense, it's probably 3 inches thick. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it is absolutely fascinating. And I think for designers, there's a lot, he talks about set theory, which is
Yeah.
fractals.
Cool.
And if you remember in the 90s, those folders with the fractals, the spinning images,
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
that each tiny piece is representative of the whole.
Yeah.
It's on a scale. It's a really fascinating thing. And I think that it can expand your design ideas. Oh,
It's
good.
true.
Someone's read it. Sue.
Yeah. Sue's read it. Oh yeah, my father read it too. It was one of those things that was always in the what do you call it? Well, anyway, it was in the reading room in quotes, always available. Yeah, it's something that just it never really got to me because I was so math phobic. See, Emily read it too. There you go. So we've got the two math girls in here. That's awesome. The Mandelbrot. Well, I know about that because of Jonathan Colton, but that's another kind of nerd thing. Yeah, I'm a total music nerd. Um, okay, so now tell me what's on your needles. What are you knitting? Do
Let's
you have
see. I
time to
usually
knit?
have
This
a
is your
few.
busy season.
I know it is my busy season, so I don't have a ton of time to knit. I just finished a sweater that I can't quite show you yet because it'll be appearing on a blog soon. But it's knit with Beacon, and it was really a lovely knit. My one
Cool.
purchase at Sheep and Wool. So we have a party at my studio the Saturday night
Yes.
of Sheep and Wool weekend for people who don't know. Which means that me and the studio staff get Sunday off. So we just get to go to the festival like normals and hang out.
Cool.
Parisville,
Great.
Shetland, to make a cruden, which is Isolde's Fair Isle vest.
Ah, yes.
Isolde came to the party Saturday night and was wearing this beautiful vest. And I said, I need to know about that. And she's like, oh, it's cruden. And I ran into her on Sunday, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's go shopping because I need you to just show me what I need because I'm gonna make that vest. So I have that on the
Awesome.
needles too as my sort of in between project when I just want to blindly follow someone else's pattern and not think about what I'm doing. And it's great because it's Fair
Yeah.
Isle and it's stockinette and it's just two colors a pass, so it's pretty brainless knitting. And Isolde's patterns are written beautifully, as I'm sure you know, Amy,
Yeah.
and probably everyone.
Absolutely.
Straightforward. They're very clear, so it makes for a really easy knitting project, in the
Good.
evening.
Are you
So
doing
those are the
gift knitting this
two.
year?
I always do some gift knitting. I have two nieces and a nephew, so they definitely get the most knitting. They're still small,
Good.
so they're definitely the easiest to knit for. And luckily, I have a family of makers, so everyone's really appreciative. We actually don't do gifts. The adults, we only do handmade gifts, either made by you or purchased from another
Nice.
artisan.
Yeah.
Um, because like we all have so much stuff, right? I mean, how much stuff
Yeah.
do you really need in your life?
Yeah.
So all the adults, we just give each other other handmade things,
That's
which is,
nice.
it's really nice and it's
Yeah.
special.
So are there, I know there, I see your friend Cowpatch, also my friend from Hodgepodge Knits. You guys do shows together? Do you just go to shows? How do you find shows to?
We did for a long time, and then I think for a while we were both sort of doing fiber and craft shows, and I think we've sort of split. And Cal mostly does the craft shows now, and I mostly do fiber shows,
Yeah,
sort of fiber specific.
interesting.
And I've actually cut down the number of shows I'm doing a lot. It's gotten really busy, which is great. But,
Hmm.
being a pretty small studio, when I'm not there, essentially everything stops. I
Right,
do have people that help me that do the labeling, pack the orders, do all sorts of things. But I'm still the only one dying.
right.
So when I'm not there, things slow down.
So you're not away
um,
too much.
No, I mean pretty much it's, Maryland, Sheep and Wool in May. We
Right.
have the studio party in October. And then, I usually do one other one through the year. It's sort of always changing. I do Finger Lakes Fiber Festival, which is a really small, nice festival in upstate New York in September. It's close to home and it's sort of a good way to ease into the fall.
True.
Um,
Are you doing Vogue New York again this year? Next
I'm
year?
not doing it this year.
Really?
Yeah, I skipped it in January, so
Okay.
May for Maryland Sheep and Wool is the next one for me. So I get to
Oh,
stay home until then.
good for you. Emily's asking if you were thinking about doing the Edinburgh Festival.
Oh my
Would
gosh,
it
I
be
would
even
love.
practical to get over there? I mean, how would you get all of your stock there without shipping it?
I'm not sure. I know Azolda had some mohawk in her booth last year,
Oh
because
yeah.
she designed. I'm not even going to try and say the name of the pattern. Um, I want to say Stack Showa. Emily, I think you're Scottish. You maybe have a better sense of how that's pronounced, but it's a beautiful shawl pattern. So Azolda has had the yarn at Edinburgh, and I would love to come. Mostly because I'm just intrigued by Scotland. I've never been to Scotland.
Gorgeous.
Um, so yes,
And the people
a
are awesome.
dream. Is Emily laughing at my pronunciation? Is that what the giggling is for? Probably.
Possibly. I think it's probably a sympathy giggle. Scottish people are lovely. I don't think she's laughing at you.
I wouldn't take it that way. You know, I live in the Hudson Valley, so we have lots of Native American names here. So I watch everyone from other places struggle with our names, so I get
That's true.
it.
Yeah, they're crazy. So, if you had one dream for your company, because I won't ask you where you're going to be in 5 years, because who the hell knows that? But what was the one thing you wish you could do or you hope to do one day?
Wow, gosh.
I
Um,
know.
you know, it feels so scary, right? Because putting it out into words like makes it more real somehow.
Okay.
um, I mean, I love what I'm doing. I love working with farms. Um, I would love to see some U.S. made fabric yardage. If I had
Mm,
some, you know, if I
yeah.
win the Powerball this weekend,
Yeah. That's a great idea.
um, I would love American made fabric that's cheap to yardage. I think that that
That's
would be
a
really
great
amazing.
idea. Yeah.
I'm, you know, I think people are really getting more concerned with the sourcing of their products, and you know, mine's all American made, but I feel like it's really important to say it's not a xenophobic thing.
No.
It's not because I think that we make stuff here better than people make stuff other places. It's just about supporting my local community.
Yeah.
It feels really good to be able to drive up to Green Mountain and know that everyone working there is getting paid a living wage and they're a co-op and that they're invested. Um, you know, a lot of the farms I work with were selling to the wool pool before they were selling to me, and the wool pool pays commodity prices. So
Right.
farmers were getting cents a pound for their wool. And I pay them a fair amount more than that. And, you know, I can't afford to pay them, you know, $20 a pound. But that little bit difference, I think is good for them. It's good for me. I think it's good for the industry. You know, happy farms and healthy farms are better for the sheep. It's better for the wool. You know, I like the idea of this really close system of,
Yeah.
you know, knowing each part of it. Even when the wool gets delivered, often the yarn, you know, it'll come on pallets. And I've had the same trucker deliver, you know, 4 pallets now. And
Awesome.
you get a relationship with these people, and it, you know, that to me feels really special. Because any business, you're going to be spending money, right? You're going to be writing
Yeah.
checks, and um, the money that you get in goes back out. And for me, knowing that it goes back out to places that I'm really proud to support, that I'm so happy to be writing those checks to.
That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
to be, you know, to be able to go up to a farm and see the sheep and watch people's kids grow up. I mean, you know, I've been doing it long enough now that kids that were kind of small when I started going to the farms, you know, are starting to go off to college.
Yes, 9 years later
Which
now.
feels
That's
crazy.
very cool. Yeah, I know what you mean. That is pretty awesome. There's something about our industry. I mean, when we see each other at trade shows, we want everyone else to succeed. We want to support each other. So it's not about geographic location so much as it is about supporting good people and helping keep their businesses alive, which is a
Yeah.
wonderful thing to do. Yeah. Any questions, you guys, before I let Jill go? This is your
Don't be
shot.
shy.
Yeah, I know there's only two of you, so like there's a lot of pressure. But if there's something you need to know, this is your chance. Okay, everyone's. Oh, Emily's thinking, and it's coming out. I like. Did you see Scottish people all argue amongst themselves about how to pronounce things? Emily's thinking. Okay. So I think. Oh, wait. Sue has something to say. She may be saying as well. You never know.
Well, you know,
Okay.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram
Yes.
and Ravelry, and I am always happy to answer questions. In
Okay.
fact, people asking me questions, it often it's things that I didn't realize people didn't know, or things that
Right.
seem so commonplace to me. So it's always good. I'm always happy to have questions. I think it's one of the really cool things about living in this world, right, with the internet, is
I
that
love that.
you can
Yeah.
connect with people. So I'm always happy.
Oh, Emily's saying there's a fair wool fabric thing going on, as in fair trade wool kind of thing. That's pretty cool. I think the UK And parts of Europe are like ahead of us on this fair trade thing. Like I've noticed at Tesco's, or I think it's a Tesco or at the co-op, they have the little logo for the fair trade. You know, that's what they support. They support fair trade purchasing. And so now I'm looking for that when I buy coffee and anything else when possible, because, you know, the thought of profiting at the expense of someone else's humanity is horrible. Oh, interesting. Okay, so the guys who make Harris tweed, they don't always know where the wool came from. All right.
Oh, I didn't
Well, I
realize
guess
we were
it's a
quite so
movement.
international. So we have Toronto, New York, Melbourne,
Yep.
and Scotland all calling
Scotland.
in, yeah?
That's very cool. I think maybe that's also a function of the time of day and the fact that you guys are not celebrating Thanksgiving. So that's probably part of it. Good heavens. All right,
Um,
guys, I'm going to let Jill go and thank her very much for talking to us.
well,
And
thank you. Thanks for having me.
no problem. Tell everybody what your website is so people can head out to take a peek.
Super easy. www.jilldraper.com.
There you go, jilldraper.com. All right, thanks, honey. I'm going to stick around and answer any questions that Emily and Sue might have and give them a little heads up. But thank you for coming,
All right.
and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
She's going to figure out how to click herself out now.
Yeah.
You want help or are you good?
Nah, I think I got it.
Okay, she's got it. There we go. Hi, guys. So do you have any questions for me? I'm checking down the bottom corner in case you're wondering what I'm staring at, as I can sort of see this chat window there. Yay? Awesome. So in Knittyland, we're getting very close to the next issue. It will be out before December 8th. Still no swag in Melbourne. Oh, crap. Sue, were you the one that I talked to on email? I think it might have. Worst case, if it doesn't happen, I will resend. Okay, Emily has yours. All right. So just keep in touch because I don't know if you heard this, Sue, but someone from New York State, same place that I mailed them from, it took a month for her to get hers, and the postage was correct. So if that happened, it's possible yours is stuck in transit. I promise you, you will get it before next year or before like the next year gets shipped. Let's just give it a little bit more time, and if it doesn't come, I'll send you a new package. Okay? Because there's enough for me to send. It's not a problem. I have a funny feeling it may still be on its way. And I'm sorry you've had to wait so long because honestly, that's just crappy. I don't really like the fact that we have this situation, but we're sort of stuck. So regarding the issue, it's coming out before December 8th because that's when I get my last carpal tunnel surgery on this hand. Thanks, Sue. I have someone who will be around. He's actually in the next room, probably watching something. And so I have a proper caregiver now. He's a lovely man. I'm doing quite well. Everything is very good. So that'll be fun, but the issue has to be out before December 8th so I can go and get cut open. And so I always kind of like that. That's what happened in spring, summer. I had to get the issue out because I went under the knife like 2 days after we went live. So it's important that get done properly. And I also feel that the winter issue of all our issues should be as early as possible in December. So that makes any of the little projects that we publish for you guys practical as gift knits. So we've worked really hard to try to get winter out as early as possible in the month. So, and I tell patrons that. I don't tell everyone else that, but you guys get to know all the extras. So things are going well for us. Jillian is really busy. She, released her first book on her own this year, and it's been a huge hit. So if you haven't taken a peek at Yarnitecture, you probably want to do that. It's awesome. There's some really neat products that I'll be reviewing in the issue, as she will also be reviewing them. We've got a nice set of blocking wires that are coming out, some new books, including Jill's. What else? Oh, I found something really cool that I want to put on merch in case anybody wants t-shirts that just say Knitty. And I found this amazing logo by this really cool illustrator, and I'm going to be talking to her about getting that actually on the merch and get the merch store back open because we haven't had that open in ages. So that's sort of on the list of things I want to get done. And I also have finalized, I think so. I finalized the logo for this 2016, 2017, because that's how I'm labeling them from now on for the patron year. And that will be going up in the next few days. I just want to get it finalized. And then I still have to find the face melter reward because people are going to want to know what it is. But I'm pretty sure I know what it is. I've talked to someone. She's awesome. She'll be making this thing special for us. It is pretty cool. In fact, there is, as I speak right now, I think there's one spot open in face melters, which is like the super expensive level. It's not for everybody, but for people who want to support at that level, we try to give them as much yum as we can. So that's what that's about. For everyone at the extra spicy level, you guys get the trade show stuff that we do, which comes out next, I guess it's always June. We're back in Columbus again for the trade show. And I don't know what that's going to be, but I think it may not be a button. I think I want to do something different. So whatever they get, you get. The only thing that keeps, sitting in the back of my head is that I can walk around and hand out anything at a trade show, but I have to be able to mail your reward. So whatever I do has to be mailable. So that's something in my head. And in my head, I also am aware that it's possible buttons, despite the fact that they were actually slipped in a fairly thick coin envelope, and then that envelope put inside your envelope, which was Tyvek, which is what they wrap houses in when they make, build houses. That's as sturdy as I could make it. The button could still have gotten jammed up in machines. So that's why I'm tempted to maybe not do a button for next year. So we'll see. I have an idea. I always have ideas. If you guys have ideas as patrons, you're entitled, and I hope you would take advantage of the special board that we have. I write a lot of, posts to you guys and tell you what's going on, but it's completely available to you to write on the news feed and ask questions, bring up topics, like treat it like a forum, because that's really what it is. And you guys can get to know your fellow patrons, ask me stuff, ask me things that, you wouldn't necessarily find out unless you were a patron, because you are entitled to like special access. So feel free. That's what I'm here for, is to answer your questions and help, get you involved. I love your feedback. It's very important to me. So that's it. Here, I'll show you my sweater. It has not grown a lot because this hand is fixed, this hand is not, and it still is numb, which is sucky. But the sweater is growing. I don't know what it looked like last time you saw it. I don't know why it's inside out, but you can still see how tall it's getting, which is kind of cool. It's growing. At some point, I should probably measure it. It's been a while since I've measured it. And then it's ribbing and sleeves, which is kind of awesome. I love this. This is this Revive yarn from Rowan that I'm in love with. It's all recycled silk and nylon and cotton and everything. I can't wait. Yeah, it's always just that 1 extra inch, and you keep knitting, and it's always 1 inch more. I hate that. What is that? Anyway. So you guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the two of you being here. I know, it's true, right? If only 1 more inch, and then you knit the inch, and then it's still another inch. I don't know why it's always that. It's craziness. And this is cotton, too, which means it's going to shrink up, so I have to probably knit it even longer just to make sure I have it nice and tight, because this baby will be really nice when it's thrown in the washer and the dryer. I like that. Anyway, I'm here. Head into the patron-only newsfeed anytime you want and ask a question or just pop in an observation. I'm glad to hear it. Of course I swatched, Emily, and I washed and dried it. I'm a good girl. I behaved. I will see you again. Probably, I would like to do this much earlier in the year. So December, January, February is the time period for the next issue for our chats. I'm going to try to keep it away from the holidays. So probably January. Hopefully that'll work for you guys. I'll put up the doodle thing again because I like to get as many people as possible able to come. And we'll talk again. And if you guys have a guest you would like me to bring on, again, patron-only newsfeed, just pop into patreon.com/knitty and click over to the post section and just ask a question. Say, I would like to see this person. And if I can, I'll bring him on. If it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, it's not going to happen. Trust me, I would love to have him, but he's a busy man. Plus, he doesn't knit. Anyway, you guys have a great weekend. To everyone in the States who were celebrating, I'm also an American as well. It's also Canadian. But I hope you've had a lovely turkey time and are enjoying your family if you get to spend time with them, or enjoying your solitude if you're not spending time with them and that's the way you wanted it. Love you guys. This is me saying bye.